Okay, welcome to another Down the Rabbit Hole video, and this is just a quick one. It's the end of the year, and Christmas has just been and gone, and of course, it makes me think about Jesus. Metal Jesus Rocks, specifically. A couple weeks ago, he did a very interesting video, and I thought, I gotta do a video response to this because I have an opinion on it. And then Christmas came, so a bunch of videos got delayed. So this one's a little bit later than I would have normally put it, but I really wanted to address something that Metal Jesus talked about. He did a video about what is the one console that was your biggest letdown or disappointment, and I'll put a link below to his video. But when I heard that, I thought, you know, there's one specific console that I've got a real roller coaster relationship with it. I love what it did. What it didn't do frustrated the heck out of me. And this is what this is. This is my video response, or at least a little quick subject on what Metal Jesus asked. And that is, what console was my biggest letdown or my biggest disappointment? For me, and I've sung the praises of this console, but I'm now going to tear a little bit into it, my biggest disappointment, if you will, or letdown, is the Nintendo Wii. Yeah, now I like what this machine tried to do, and when it did it well, it was awesome. I've done videos about some of the light gun games you can play with this. Boom Blocks is awesome. This is a really, really good machine, but it was also a great source of disappointment for me. It was the most successful console of its generation, sold 110 million units or something like that, close to the PlayStation 2, the all-time biggest. And yet, this thing got very, very poor third-party support, and a lot of times it really aggravated me. Now, it's worth mentioning, I'm not a huge Nintendo fan. I'm going to do a video someday because my relationship or my appreciation for Nintendo has been about as much of a roller coaster ride as this thing has been. I have loved them at times, and I have really found them very frustrating, more so than enjoyed them. It's been up and down, peaks and valleys, and the Wii, I think, really ironically represents that perfectly. Now, I've already gone into, when I talked about Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, love this game, awesome stuff. This was the turning point for me. This is when I fell out of love with the Wii. And just to summarize that video very briefly, it sounded like Nintendo didn't really understand, oh yeah, people are going to want to play this online multiplayer? And they were like, what? What's online multiplayer? Yeah, that was the turning point. When I encountered that, I was just like, okay, you guys don't understand the way gaming is going. Now, I didn't mind the fact that this did not do high definition graphics when it came out. Best it could do was 480p, which actually looks pretty good. I've got that on my main big TV. And, you know, when it came out, there weren't a lot of other, like high definition wasn't really a thing yet, so I totally get that. The fact it only had 500 megabytes of storage on it in a time when downloadable content was really kicking in gear was like, okay. Now, they did eventually fix that. I was very, very pleased. They actually gave support for little SD cards. You could finally run your virtual console games off there and all that stuff. And Rock Band eventually allowed you to download songs and play them off the little memory card. So they fixed it, but my goodness, it took a long time for that to ever happen. But no, what really got me with the Wii was how it was the most successful console, and yet a lot of developers outside of Nintendo, and again, Nintendo, I like Mario, I'm not a huge Zelda fan, I've done a video about that, but if you are not a Nintendo fan, like myself, this console was a real source of frustration. I will never forget Game Trailers, the TV show on Spike TV, hosted by Jeff Keighley in 2008 or 9 possibly. He had one of the guys from Criterion talking about the upcoming Burnout Paradise game for the Xbox and the PlayStation. You know, the only two consoles that exist. And I was like, no, wait a minute. I didn't have a PS3 at that time. I'm like, wait, what? Most successful console? Hello, guys. where's our Burnout game? And Jeff Keighley asked the developer, he's like, so when's the Wii version coming? And the guy actually laughed. He brushed it off as like, that's not even a serious question. And as this was my only console at the time, I was furious about that. Especially when you consider Burnout 1 and 2 came out for the GameCube. Like, come on, you guys. And okay, yeah, you can play GameCube games on this, which is a very nice feature, sure. But like, can we not get any Burnout game on the Wii? I've read stats. Apparently this thing was on par with the original Xbox for power. Sounds about right. When it's good, it looks really, really good. So why could we not at least get something, you know, a slightly pared down version? No, it's not going to happen. We're just going to laugh and shrug it off. I'm like, what the? And of course, I've talked about it before, I'm a big Assassin's Creed fan. And I was aware that the first game especially, and the others, you've got a huge sprawling city with lots of people walking around. That's not going to be very easy to do on this thing. Sure, okay, yeah. But you made an Assassin's Creed game for the PSP. I mean, come on. Can't we get like a scaled down lower version like the PSP one at least? Nope, not going to happen. No Assassin's Creed on the Wii. What the? So when I got the PS3 finally, that was the first game I got. And it was a little bit like, I don't know, being freed from prison for the first time. It was like, wow, I can play all the games that the developers that I'm watching on these various shows, television shows back then, now on YouTube. I was just so much like, okay, here's this great Batman game or this great space traveling game. Cool. And what console or what platforms is it coming out? It's coming out for Xbox 360, PS3, and PC. And the most successful console, anything? Yes? No? Maybe so? Oh, fine. Now, in the intervening years, I found out that Nintendo consoles, especially since like GameCube era, have not been that appealing to a lot of developers. It's a company brand that is largely, not always, not exclusively, but largely recognized as family-friendly content. So, although you've had Manhunt and awesome stuff like Mad World, you're not going to succeed on a Nintendo platform if you're going for a really hard R sort of adult rating kind of a game. So I get that. I understand that. And the lower power processor, okay, I get that's why not a lot of people were wanting to spend any time. I remember an interview with the Dead or Alive guy, sorry, guy with the sunglasses. I'll put his picture over here. Anyway, he had a very good point. Somebody was interviewing him, and he mentioned that development in Japan, and that's honestly where a lot of this stuff was coming from. Like, you know, you had EA doing Bone Blocks, which was awesome, and you had some, like, the first, or Call of Duty 3, great stuff, and The Conduit, great stuff. But the vast majority of the stuff that was maybe going to come out on the Wii would have been from Japanese developers like him, and he was saying not in a way that was like against Nintendo, but just what is Japanese development culture? Why does it take decades for The Last Guardian to come out? Meanwhile, in North America, they can release like 17 Assassin's Creed games in the same amount of time. And he said, in Japan, now this is his perspective. I don't know if it's entirely accurate, but I think it speaks volumes. He said in Japan, being a video game developer is kind of like being a rock star. You know, you get all the specialty stuff, and you're the creme de la creme of the developing world. So, those guys are gonna aim for the platform that delivers the best possible experience, and as a result, you're not going to get crummy little ports going across. You're going to get really good games that look gorgeous and have been poured over, and so that these guys can show, this is my art, this is what I was going for. So when PS3 and Xbox 360 came along, it was like, well, all this old PS2 era looking graphic stuff, we're not doing it. We're not interested. Go away. And I thought, okay, well, answers that one then, doesn't it? So, anyway, to cut a very long story short, my video response to Metal Jesus, though I love it at times, and this is in many ways a great console, it has also been my biggest disappointment. Largely because of third-party developers, largely because Nintendo doesn't understand there's a thing called the internet, or trophies, or any of the stuff that most of us take for granted now. They're learning. But that frustration, by the way, is why I will never get a Switch. I love the 3DS, and that's kind of the last Nintendo console I will ever buy. I'm not interested in the Switch. I looked at the Wii U kind of just giggling to myself. I was like, nobody's going to play that. Nobody's going to buy that. And they didn't. The Switch is doing really well, and I'm very happy for Nintendo. I hope they continue, because the more variety we have in the gaming landscape, great. But I have learned my lesson from this little guy. I know now a little better where Nintendo's coming from, where they're going, what their mindset is. And unfortunately, that's not the kind of gaming I want to do. So this will be a testimony to that particular philosophy and my breaking away from Nintendo. As I say, this game was a real eye-opener. Change of pace for me. So I will not be buying any more Nintendo consoles for that very reason. And you're probably noticing I never talk about Nintendo games on my video or on my YouTube channel, or hardly ever. And that's also because Nintendo doesn't understand how YouTube works. And I'm not going to get into that either. Anyway, so to answer Metal Jesus' question, what console was the most disappointing or biggest letdown for me? Much as I love it, it was the Nintendo Wii. Until next time, we'll see you down the rabbit hole.